Where's Fielder?
He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome once again to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. Man, I tell you what, the hunting seasons are in full swing. That old temperature's starting to drop most everywhere. Our guest today is telling me he had snow at his place yesterday. And I just returned from about a 2,300-mile round trip up through the mountains. Took me all the way to Pennsylvania, back down through Virginia and West Virginia, and got to visit some of my old stomping ground where my dad and I used to bear hunt, and just had a great trip. And we'll be talking a little bit about that as we go forward. I've got a terrific guest today, a guy that I always like to bring to the microphone here on Gone to the Dogs if the subject is breeding coonhounds. I don't know anybody in the country that's working harder at it or doing a better job at it than our special guest Randy Smith today, and I'm looking forward to bringing Randy to the microphone just in a minute. First of all, I want to sincerely congratulate the winners of the PKC Youth World Championship and the PKC World Championship held recently in Salem, Illinois. A young man named Chase Laws of Leoma, Tennessee, won the 2022 PKC Youth World Championship with Piney Ridge Turbo. Turbo's owned by Hunter Rochelle of Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. Now, this young man earned $6,000 in cash and scholarship awards. We want to send a big shout out to Chase Laws, Leoma, Tennessee, your 2022 PKC Youth World Champion. And then a guy I know for a long time, in fact, the last time he won the World Championship, I was along. I sat there on a log, and we almost froze to death waiting for our judge, Kevin Roberson, to come back and score a tree. The dogs that were under that tree were Silver Dollar Stone and the Stylish Oz dog. And unfortunately, Kevin Turner, who was one of those people sitting there with us waiting for that tree to be scored, has since passed away, and we're sad about that. But we do want to congratulate Ronnie Smith, who was handling Silver Dollar Stone that night back in 2001, for once again winning the big one with Platinum Champion, World Champion Heather Island Southern Stogie. He's the 2022 PKC World Champion. Won that distinction out at Salem, Illinois. Stogie is a 2019 model, Tree and Walker male owned by Ronnie Smith, Cheyenne Cummings, and Ike Rainey. Cheyenne, of course, is from Neosho, Missouri, I believe. Anyway, this was worth $32,000 for the win, and that boasts Stogie's lifetime earnings up to $46,224. So a big shout out to Ronnie Smith, Cheyenne Cummings, and Ike Rainey for winning the 2022 PKC World Championship. What an honor. Well, the guy that I'm going to bring to the mic now is no stranger to PKC or UKC or anywhere there's a major event or a Final Four to be hunted in. He's hunted in a lot of them. In fact, he's won the UKC World Championship back in 2016, and that's when he and I really became friends. And he and his partner, Tom Strang, were out at Greencastle, Indiana, and they won the big one out there. I was privileged to be out on a cast the night before the final cast with the Lone Pine Biffy Sioux female, their world champion. But, man, I've said enough, I guess, Randy. It's just great to have you on the microphone. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Steve. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good, and I guess our listeners should know that I did see you here a couple of days ago as Ella and I were making our fall swing up through the mountains and looking at all the beautiful foliage. We were able to come by and, man, pick up a nice puppy. We got a Frogger pup. What do you think about that pup?
She was really, really nice. I knew you would love her whenever you come to get her.
Yeah.
What a heavy-headed, houndy little female with a mouth you ought to be able to hear for a long ways.
Well, that's what we're hoping. As I get older, louder's better. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's right.
That's for sure. Well, I also wanted to talk just a little bit as we were driving back from your place. Your boys got real busy that day and had a big day in the deer blind. What? Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about what Troy and Cole were up to.
Well, the temperature had dropped for really the first time here this fall, and we knew it was going to be a few good days here, and them deer would really get moving. And I've never really been interested in deer hunting too much, but when these kids show interest in something, I'm all in. So we here just a few years ago got a really good place set up right next to, not far from, about 300 yards from the house here, to deer hunt. So Troy and I went back. Must have been Monday night, I guess. Yeah, Monday night, and we weren't in the stand probably a half an hour, and a buck came out, and he's picky, so he said, "Oh, that's not the we've had a really good buck on the camera back there." So he said he was going to pass, and the buck just came into us like he was on a string, and the closer he got, and the nicer he looked, Troy said, "I'm going to shoot that buck," and I said, "Well, that's a wise move, bud, because you can sit there the rest of the season and not have anything happen." So it just went down like it was a TV show. He just went perfectly.
Yeah.
So that evening, the boys' buddies were here, and I had two of their buddies and two of their buddies' dads set up to hunt in other places. So they all come back in, and Cole acted like he was a little bit put out that he wasn't involved in the hunt, which my younger son is not too interested in anything that doesn't have a motor on it. He's a dirt bike nut. So
Right.
I said to him, tomorrow night we're going. Well, through the day, when I texted him at school, he said he'd come up with something else he was going to do. And I said, "No, we're going deer hunting tonight, bud." So anyway, we went back, and we weren't in the stand 15 minutes, and the great big one that we've been watching come out, and it was a carbon copy of what happened the night before, just come rolling right in perfectly, and he just made a great shot, and they both had it was probably never to be duplicated. It was great.
Well, that's great, and it's amazing how kids, they can be different, but I think that old that Smith family gene there came to bear when he with Cole. I was kind of surprised to see that Cole had gotten out there and got that nice buck too. But
yeah, it was heartwarming for me, that he
yeah.
And so, you know how that goes. Well, he says, I just go back there and I killed the big one in a couple minutes, Troy, and you've been after it. Oh, boy. Here we go.
That sibling rivalry comes to the front, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's great. You have two fine boys, Randy, and I know that you
Thank
and Carrie are doing everything possible to see that those boys get a good upbringing, and they're both polite young men, and just really a pleasure to be around. So good for them. I'm happy for them, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Well, Randy, anytime that I get a chance to talk about breeding coonhounds, which is a very important subject, because if somebody's not breeding better dogs, this whole thing's going to come to a screeching halt. And, if there isn't a plan, there isn't a design somewhere by somebody, to make these dogs better, they have only one way to go then, and that's backwards. And I know that the Treen Walker breed, I thought several years ago, was in trouble because we heard about, the dogs, to use the vernacular, the slick treen idiots, and they can't run a track and yada, yada, yada. But I know that you've always been a guy that plans your work and works your plan, so to speak, whether it's in life or it's in your business or it's in your trapping activities, your fishing activities, whatever. But when it comes to breeding tree and walkers, I couldn't think of anybody I'd rather have across the desk here from me to talk about the subject than you, because, you've really put a lot into this down through the years. And you and your partner, Tom Strang, there in Pennsylvania. Some of the people that are listening to this may not have heard the previous episodes that I've done with you, and I'd like for them to get just a little bit of background. I know that, of course, the Lone Pine kennel name is something that tree and walker people have known for a long time, and we talked about that in detail in previous episodes. But talk a little bit about you, and how you and Tom Strang kind of got together and how this Lone Pine thing came together. But then we're going to move on and talk a lot about, the current females that you have, how you came to choose them, how they've played a part in your program, and this whole plethora of stud dogs that you have used in your program. I'd like to be able to cover all that in about an hour and a half, Randy. And now I'm going to shut up because I'm talking way too much. But give me a little background. Let's go from there.
Well, the first Lone Pine dog that I ever hunted with is still to this day one of my all-time favorites, and it was Claude Lawson's Lone River Gunner. And he was up in the mountains there of Pennsylvania, and the talk of the town whenever I first started the competition hunt. And I just kind of invited myself to come up and go hunting with those guys, and we become really good friends. And I seen the dog tree hundreds of coons, and he was big, he was loud, he was accurate. He could strike a coon out of the rig going 70 mile an hour. He was just a bad dude. So he was out of Logan's Wild Quick, and a female called Lone River Dix. It was directly out of Riverbend Flag and Preston's Roxy. And Preston's Roxy was a Muddy Lane's Queen female, and that she was a Lone Pine dog. So he was, kind of a line bred dog, which that kind of breeding always fascinated me, about line breeding and how that worked and the successes from it and so forth. So anyway, through Gunner, I got to meet Gene Harrison and Woody Malone, and they were from Maryland. And they came and bought Gunner. And so Woody had a dog out of Logan's Clover called Nailer. And through knowing that cross between Clover and Lone Pine Chris, I got to meet Tom Strang. So what it was Tom was writing an article in the back of the Cooner at the time, and Woody told me those two dogs there that guy in the wheelchair is holding are litter mates to Nailer, and he's not that far from you. So I looked up Tom, and we instantly became father and son, so to speak. So that's pretty much, I had good mentoring from both angles of it, and I paid attention. That's all.
Well, I think we talked earlier before we started recording, and how you and Tom had worked pretty hard at breeding the dogs, and as it often happens, I guess, with all of us, you kind of hit a snag or kind of a curve in the road. Things weren't perhaps working as well as you had hoped, but you kind of reached out, and I think that's going to be a lot of what we talk about today, is how you have not been too proud, let's say, or hesitant to reach out to the stud dogs that you believe could help your program. And I think you and Tom did that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when we started breeding, like Ellie and Annie, those were two littermate sisters out of Logan's Clover and Chris. We never got them bred to Gunner. Yeah, it just didn't happen. We tried, but we didn't get them bred, and that would have, I think, he worked so well with what I was after that I think it would have been great if we would have got it done, but it didn't. So when we were breeding them females, we just had a hard time getting what we were looking for. But we eventually had some successes, and one of the main things was when we bred Annie to Sackett Jr. We ended up with a male dog called Cowboy. I called him Tug, but his name was Cowboy, and I had a female then that was out of Leroy, Lone Pine Leroy, that I got from Woody out of Naylor, and she was an all white Lone Pine looking female at the time. You know, they were kind of coarse haired and ticked up and white, you know, and she was a nice dog. And so I bred her to Cowboy whenever they were, I think Liz was maybe a night champion, and Cowboy hadn't even been in any hunts yet, but he was in the makings of a really good dog. And so she caught, and the morning I went down and she had pups, I lifted the lid of that box, and every one of them pups were blanket backed, red-headed. And I thought, oh boy, this guy is really dominant, you know. And he basically like made it easy for us from then on in. When I had all the females out of Cowboy that we used for breeding, it was about a dead ringer. They were great reproducers, and the dogs that we choose to breed them to clicked, and it was great.
Yeah, and I see that, you know, Cowboy, when he was bred to Lone Pine Kate, produced a female that has been very, very prominent in your breeding probably since that time, I guess, and that was a Honey Buns female.
Yeah, she was really a special dog. She sounded like a male dog, and if she had her feet planted on the side of a tree, there was a coon in it. She just did things the way you dreamed of. You know, she was a great one. You could cast her, or you could rig her off of the truck. You could do anything you wanted to do. At the time, we were really catching hides a lot. You know, it was important to have a dog that was efficient at treeing coons, you know, either close, far, in between. She was the real deal.
And she's in the Tree and Walker Hall of Fame.
Yeah, she is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So she's the mother of Biffy Sue.
Yep. And we can talk about that. Well, one thing, you know, when I started hunting with you and seeing your dogs and really taking a closer look, of course, was after Sue won the world championship. So I didn't get to hunt with Honey Buns or with Cowboy or any of those dogs. Really wish Miss Quickie or those dogs, but I did get to hunt with Sue. It wasn't, you weren't on the cast that night, but I got to sit out there on the tailgate and watch her do a really nice job. You know, on the night before the final in the World Championship. Yes. So Honey Buns produced Sue when you bred to Stylish Legend, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of the dogs that are being born here now are like 10 generations, but it just so happened like that with Sue, Woody Malone loaned me Leno. She was a female directly out of River Bend Flag, and a Lone Pine Eagle daughter. So I wanted to breed her to Gunner, so we did, and that was her last litter. So she was probably 9 when that litter was born, and then the daughter of that cross was Lone Pine Kate, and she was bred to Cowboy when she was getting up there in age, about 7 or 8 years old. And then when Honey Buns was bred to Coma's Legend, she was over 10, I believe. Wow. So it's only really 4 generations ago, but nearly 35 years or whatever, you know, it was like, but the rest of them here. Some were bred when they were younger, and so it's a longer stretched out, um, effort from here. But that's the background behind Sue and what we're hunting out of her right now.
Yeah, yeah. Sue is quite a amazing female. She's a big female. I mean, she's not. What was Sue weigh?
Well, if Sue's in running shape, I would say she's 85 pounds or something
Yeah,
close to that.
yeah.
She's a monster. If she's getting a little chunky, she's getting right up there at 90 pounds or whatever. She's a monster.
Yeah, these are leggy dogs that can really cover the ground. My partner, Keston, Jesse, and I have this female. He calls her Bonnie, and she's out of Jillian, and Jillian's out of Sue and Bone Collector, I believe, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and she's a leggy female. Boy, she's got a lot of ground, a lot of daylight under there, and can really move through the woods. So,
yeah. That's Legend was a big hound dog, and it's carrying through now. Yep.
Well, I wanted to bounce down through a little bit of these females, and then I wanted to go over and talk about these stud dogs that you've chosen down through the years, and pick your brain just a little bit about what brought you to use those particular dogs and so forth. But as I look down the list here, of course, we think about Sue. Now, Sue is how old is she now?
Sue is 9.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still in great health, though, right?
Yeah, she don't have a gray hair. She looks like she's 4.
That's awesome.
Yep, she looks great. Yep.
Well, you got a female there that kind of goes back. A girl that I liked a lot. When the first time I came up and hunted with you, you took 2 dogs that night, and we hunted them independently. And one was Lone Pine Fran, and the other one was Lone Pine Quick Shot. And yes. Fran is out of Tree Slamming Frankie, but now Frankie was out of Stylish Legend. Is that right?
No, Stylish Coma.
Coma. Okay.
Yeah, him and Legend were half brothers.
Okay, so that's I knew there was a Coma connection there somewhere, but yeah, okay. And then then Fran's out of the Track Girl female, which
Correct.
Was out of Track Man and Patsy, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, I just kind of fell in love with Fran. I just like her, and she's really produced some nice pups for you.
She has been a good reproducer. Yep, really good.
Yeah, I know. The one time there, you kind of had a little bit of a tragedy happen with Fran's litter. Was that with the Big Money litter?
Yeah, we lost them all when we bred her to Big Money, which that was really sad, But I don't know if she had a problem with her milk or what, but they looked healthy as they could be, and then the next day they're falling off, and when they're a day or two old and they start going the wrong way, there's no turning it around mostly.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that a breeder has to go through, I think. But I for one, think that you've done a great job, and of course you have a great help in raising your puppies or whelping them and so forth. And but I always see nothing but fat, slick, healthy puppies coming out of there. They all really look great. But
yeah, they do. I got an angel that helps me.
Miss Amy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, also I mentioned Shot there, and of course Shot, she kind of made some noise out there in competition. She was I know one year there she was in the final 8. I think right before I hunted with her at the PKC World, wasn't she?
I don't know. She didn't get to the heads up cast. She got knocked out right before that. So it was
before. Okay.
Probably top 34 or whatever it was. But
okay.
She looked really good. That then she mostly did really good work her whole life. She was a natural and all the chrome. She was loud and had a coon when she trees, and she's a sweetheart. She's out of Full Throttle Jigs and Miss Quickie.
Yeah, and of course Quickie was out of Honey Buns and Track.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you
Yep.
used, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You did use
Hmm.
TrackMan a couple of times back there with real good results.
Yes, we did. We had good luck breeding the track, man. We had
Right.
the two of the females that we mainly, kept moving on with was Track Girl and Miss Quickie, both really, really good reproducers. And, you just, whenever things are working, you keep moving in that direction.
For sure. And that, since we're talking about Quickie, the baby female was out of her and Bone Collector, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
My,
Lone
my, my
Pine
old time favorite.
$1 million baby. What a
Yeah.
sweetheart! And she made how many Final Fours or she
She was, well, when Rick won the World Hunt in 16, she was in the top 20. I handled her. And then we retired Sue after winning the World Hunt. And so I handed over baby to Rick. And the next year she got second in the UKC World Hunt. And the year after that, I think third. So she was in the Final Four twice. She won the Train Walker that pup extravaganza hunt that they have. That was the first time I ever put her in, and she was a real winner. She won. I think she was a world finalist 7 times, and won a lot of other stuff. And she owns a dear place in my heart. She was a sweetheart.
well, and there's a kind of a sad story there with baby and how you lost her.
Yeah,
She was bred.
yeah. She just had pups out of Frank Giddings' son dog, and she just they were maybe 3 or 4 days old, and she just acted a little bit down. And I took her to the vet right away, and she had a uterine infection that they couldn't get it under control, and she passed away. It was a sad day for us here.
Oh,
But,
I'm sure, and a real loss to the coonhound world for sure. How old was she when she passed, Randy?
I'd say she was 6.
Yeah, just in her prime for sure.
Yep, yep.
Well,
But
those are
when you're breeding those females, they're in danger. It's hard on them. There's just
right.
no getting around it. And you're taking risks whenever you're doing it. You just try to avoid them as much as you can. She was on antibiotics, the whole, from before she had the pumps and everything, but it's still something just didn't work, and it got her,
Yeah.
but yep.
Well, that's certainly a chance that we take, and if you want to breed dogs and you have as much invested in a line of dogs as you do, you've got to have more than just one. You can't put your eggs in one basket. And how do you select a female to breed? First of all, anything I've seen come out of your place have been out of a Grand Night champion female. Is that a prerequisite before you breed them, or how do you feel about that?
Well, we here in recent years, we kind of wait until that we've tried to give the females a chance to do some winning and make their name known a little bit out there. So it's not really a prerequisite, but it's just always the way that it is, because they've been in hunts to, like, say, be qualified to go to the World Hunt or go to the Tournament of Champions or whatever, and the wins are required and they're just finished. But
Right.
it's the titles doesn't mean anything about how the dog is going to reproduce, but when you have a product that you're planning on other people hopefully desiring to own, you have to have the criteria there and the credentials on the dog, and that means, in today's world, that means competition hunting. So the same dogs that we breed, we compete with, and that's just what
Right.
that's it. That's all.
Well, I think there's 2 ways you can look at this. I know I've been kind of, I shake my head every time you pick a pup out of a litter, it seems like it goes right on to the big stage, and I can remember, back when your Bella female was a puppy, and she was just so beautiful, such a beautiful pup. And I think she was just a one time. Was she the only pup that lived in that litter? Out of
No, that was
that was
the
Bone
first.
Collector and Fran, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first. That was the first time I bred Fran, and I think there were 7
Okay.
that lived in her litter, and it was a really good cross. We have Bella out of that cross, a female called Dinah, and I did have one called Pearl that
Hmm.
Danny Carr and I owned together, and Danny and I did a little swapping around and stuff, and he owns Pearl all to himself now. But those were the 3
Hmm.
females in the litter, and they're good ones.
Well, I know, and when you picked Fran, not Fran, but Bella, and me liking Fran anyway, I kind of said, "Boy, what a beautiful pup she was." And then she
Yeah,
went all the way. And I guess it was back. I don't know, was it in the spring or last fall that I was up and hunted with you, and we took Bertha and
mm,
Bella, and we hunted them independently. And
yeah.
Bella did a really nice job.
She's an impressive female. Got the
Yeah.
mouth and the looks, and she's the whole package.
Yeah, for sure, she is.
Hmm.
Well, just the point being there, it seems like these pups that you pick and keep. I don't know if it's in the training. I know it's the genetics more than anything, but you just seem to have a knack of getting the good ones or developing the good ones. I don't know which which way that
Well,
goes.
I fortunately live in a really good place to raise pups, so that I can let them run loose and develop in their own time. And I try to just head them in the right direction. They get lots of care and handling, and there's woods everywhere around here, so they can go, and they just learn the ways of everything from the time they're little. And sooner than later, generally, you hear them treed somewhere, and they tell you when it's time to start taking them out, and it
Yeah,
just works out. That's all. It's a dog that has to live its life in the pen as a youngster is at a disadvantage compared to that, for sure. I have a Jack Russell here that she's real calm with the pups, and she takes them on jaunts, and they just naturally, it comes out. That's all.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's what we've been preaching on this podcast for so long is, let the give the pup the opportunity for the genetics to come to the front.
Yep.
And I think with this little Frogger puppy that we've got, Keston's already taking her on walks.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
He's he said, I don't want to spend too much time with her. I don't want her to get spoiled with me. And I said, well, what you're doing out there letting her roam around and go with you, sit in trail cams, or he does lawn service and all, and she rides on the seat with him and all. So I think that's all good in the early stages of a pup's life. I have not seen a pup come from your place that was shy in any way, and
No, no, it work. The way we do it here it works really well. It works well. So the more time that pup can be interacting with people, and being loose and everything, the better off that they are. I think in the long run, their whole lives, they're calmer,
hmm
and they're just more well adjusted if they've had a chance
right.
for that brain to absorb everything as a youngster. I think it's just vital, really. And then even when I have one here that shows like some problems or whatever, I'm confident that sooner or later I can see that mama come out of that pup. So I
Mm.
don't I don't give up on them. I keep, and me just being confident and knowing what the background is in them, and the little quirks or whatever that maybe this one had or that, knowing that they'll come out of it. You just got to stick with it, which, we try to be patient with them, and we try to just mold them and send them in the right direction. And that's just the difference between somebody that has seen what the past is with them and somebody that just has a pup that's doing something that bothers them, that they're just not confident that they can get past it. That's all.
Well, I think there's a lot of parallels to that as we see in our country, where there seems to be a plan out there to destroy all of our history. If we can just destroy all reminders of history, then we can change it. Well, you don't change history. History
Correct.
it's right there. And if you know these dogs, and you knew what Mama was and Grandmama was and Granddaddy and all of that, it gives you well, first of all, it gives you confidence that this dog, has got such a good background that if handled right, it's going to come out.
Correct.
And, exactly. Yep. Well, we talked a lot of. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was. You go, bud. I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Well, we spoke about Fran a lot, and there's a brother to Fran that Sonny Phelps has over in Ohio, I believe.
Yeah,
named Louie, and that brings in a pup I want to talk about a little bit named Bertha. What about all that?
Well, from the beginning, I had trouble getting pups out of Sue. When I bred her the very first time to Bone Collector, she just had the one pup, Jillian. So after that, I just didn't want to believe that it was Sue's fault, and we tried breeding her, and it just weren't having any success. So Sonny's dog out there is a real deal. He looks and sounds and performs more like Old Cowboy than any dog that I know of right now. Mm-hmm. He's cold nosed, in the wintertime type of dog, he's as accurate as they get. He's the whole package. So I said to Sonny, I'm having trouble getting Sue bred. If I sent her out there, would you just, breed her every other day that she'd take him, to try to get her caught? My buddy Sonny said, I'll just do you one better. I'll bring him right to your place, and you just use him however you want, and we'll see what we can do. So he brought him out, and that's what I did. And we ended up, at least we got two pups. He's got a male dog, and Troy kept a female that he called Bertha right from the beginning, that he fell in love with, and she's making a world-class dog right now. So that's a pretty tight line bred pup that we have in her.
Yeah, well, I was real impressed with Bertha when I came up the last time I was up hunting, and I think we cut her around a big cornfield, and she treated 3 singles around there, and I believe you told me that she kind of got it done last night in pretty nice fashion too.
She did a great job last night. We went into a pretty rough section, no corn or no easy stuff in there, and she treated 3 in probably an hour and a half or so, from the beginning of the block to the end of it, and looked amazing. She looked great. She's making the cut on the big time here, we hope.
Well, and she's making a coon hunter in the process too.
Yeah, yeah, boy loves her.
Yeah, Troy's making quite the chip off the old block, I guess. He's really getting into this thing, and it's great to see. Really is.
He loves coon hunting and everything about it. The talking and the hanging out with the guys, and what went on last night. He's interested in it all, so it tickles me. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And you've got a female there you call Jillian, and you mentioned her just now with that she was a lone pup out of Sue and Bone Collector, and the female that we have out of Trackman that Keston and I have is out of Jillian, and also this Frogger pup, which we've been talking about too, is out of Jillian. So,
Yep,
yeah.
Kyle Preston has hunted Jillian most of her life, and we decided to put her into the breeding program here. It was time. She was 5 or she's 5 now, I think. But she's a big 100%, hound female. Just she's every bit as big as her mama. Big mouth. She's extremely accurate. Can tree 3 coons in an acre or be 900 sitting in there with another one. She's really a top shelf coon dog. So we bred her for the second time here to Frogger, and she's a good mama, and things are looking real good. There's several out of her and Trackman that you couldn't buy them. So looking pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's no reason for you and me to sit down and talk about all this breeding and all this background and all unless we show some of the results of it. And that's kind of what I wanted to do here today, to, kind of spotlight a little bit some of these dogs and what they're doing. And, of course, you've got a couple of dogs, and we'll get into this a little maybe more in depth. But one of the dogs that... we mentioned $1 Million Baby and all her success, and of course the tragic end. But you took her over and bred to the Little Money Dog, and you've got a couple of dogs that have been making a lot of noise out of that cross. What about, tell me that story a little bit.
Well, we had hunted against Little Money different times, and he's a hardcore competition dog. Kevin Cable had him at the time whenever we bred to him, and he would get out of there and get under a coon so fast. We were looking for that, and I liked his mama was a really good reproducer, produced a couple different super staked winners, and so we bred Baby to Little Money the first time that we decided to breed her. And we kept 2, a male dog that Rick hunts we call him Bank, and a female called Lady that I started here. She was a natural. And right now she's at John Strickland's house. John had drawn her, I think he said 7 times with Austin Ewing handling her, and loved her and wanted to buy her. And so John and I become partners with her, and Austin and Rick. We all decided it was in the best interest of Lady and everything involved to send her to John's, and they're just getting to know each other right now, and hopefully the future's bright for her.
Well, I'm sure it will be, and I've told my listeners this before, I believe, but I was so impressed with Lady when she was just 8 months old when I was up hunting, and we cut her 2 different times, I believe. We were hunting out of I call it a Cadillac side by side, sitting there with may have had the heater on. It was a windy night, blustery night.
Wasn't it?
We were watching the drive track there, and this 8-month-old pup goes hunting. And really hunts an area out around there, gets treed about 4 or something from us. We go there, and I've got a video of that still, and I keep it. Go up on the hillside there, and look what the little girl's got, 2 coons up a tree. but the crazy part of that story is we cut her, and she did it again.
Yeah.
And she treed 2 more, another double like that. So
wind just beating against that mountain.
Oh, it was, man.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a special one. So she's still they won't be 4 until February. So they got a lot of time yet to get some stuff done.
Well, you mentioned Rick Strouser, and of course, Rick's been a valuable asset to your efforts there. I know you would agree with me, Randy. He handled Sue in the World Championship and got that notch under his belt, and then he's been hunting a Bank dog. Bank is a platinum champion now, isn't he?
Yes. Yep. He's I don't know how many uh, world champion finals he's been in, not final fours, but he was in the final four of the super stakes, his first super stakes there at the sophomores. And he got in the top 20 of the UKC World Hunt last year and was a finalist at the PKC World Hunt last year. And he's a chip off the old block. He's exactly like his daddy was, just wide hunting, dangerous, hair on fire, looking to get under one right away. He's a bad dude.
Yeah, he is. He's an unusual dog. I mean, you stack him one way and he's a blackback dog, and you stack him the other way and he's an open spotted dog.
Yeah.
He's a good looking hound, and you bred him to Sue, I believe, right?
Right. So with, like I said, with all the trouble that we had with getting Sue bred, then when I had him here, and he's definitely has the credentials to be a sire. So we bred him to Sue, and we did get the biggest litter that we got out of her, 7 pups, and we're hunting a couple of the females now, and they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got one. I keep bouncing back to Fran. You got one called Little Fran that's doing a good job now too, right?
Yeah, we bred her to Hardiman's Jeb, Chris Hardiman's dog in Georgia there, and she's coming to be world class here. She's got all the mouth and the looks and the raccoon and the whole deal. So yeah, we've got future's bright.
Well, I think we've pretty well laid the foundation here, and I think that it would be safe to say, if you were to sum up the mission of Lone Pine Kennels, is to take these line bred females that go back this whole line, you say 9 generations or more, and breed them to what I imagine you are the guy that's making the decisions as to which stud dog you're going to breed this line of females to improve the line. Am I correct?
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
I wanted to kind of go down a list here that I've made, and you, of course, jump in and anything that needs to be changed. But looking at the stud dogs that you've chosen to use in your breeding program, and I've told people this for so many years: get a good female, train that female out, get the bloodline you like, yada, yada. Then, the world is your oyster. You can take that female to any dog you want. It doesn't work the other way,
That's
when
right.
you've got the male.
If you've got a really nice male dog, you're begging.
Yeah.
You've got it's the toughest road you're going to head up if you've got a male dog and convince people to bring females to it. But if you have good females, all you have to do is put the hint out there that you're thinking about using a dog or this or that, and they're usually getting a hold of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. You're holding all the cards for sure.
Yep.
Okay, looking from recent times, and of course, we could go way back, but you mentioned when you bred the Sackett Jr. and you got the cowboy dog and you got that whole litter that, kind of turned things around.
Yeah, we just started breeding. Fortunately, all the females that we had at the time, we could breed the cowboy. It was like nephew to aunts and cousins and things like that. So when I bred him to those females, it was just like a game changer. It went from hoping that, crosses would work to the confidence that that it takes to really be a dog breeder, you have to believe in what you're doing. And if you're doubting what you're doing, it's not going to work. So anyway, with bumps in the road and all that, all breeding programs are going to encounter them. But he leveled it out, and he made it easy for us to come up with honest dogs that that just did work the way that you'd like them. And then when we use them for the breeding program, it become easy.
Well, for sure. And okay, after Sackett Jr., what was the next, let's say, major stud dog or that you reached out to?
Oh,
I've got a list here, and did you breed to
yeah.
Bone Collector before you bred to Legend?
Well, the first female that I bred out of Cowboy was Patsy, and we bred her pretty young. She was only a couple years old when we bred her to Trackman.
Okay.
And that was highly successful. That's where Muscle Man came from. That a lot of guys are hunting dogs that are, from that part of the line of dogs, and that's where Track Girl came from.
Right.
She was on the top reproducers list for the better part of her life. And so when we bred the next time, then that we got pups out of Trackman was out of Honey Buns, and that was a female out of Kate and Cowboy. And that's
Right.
where Miss Quickie came from, the mother of Baby and Quick Shot and all that. So
Right.
Trackman was the first outcross. Well, he's an outcross, but he was Lone Pine bred top and bottom. So, but
Right.
usually if you're looking at that as to pump you up. I mean, he was still an outcross. It was far enough back
Right.
that it wasn't really our line of the Lone Pine stuff. So he was an outcross, but it was really good. And so that would be the answer to that question. He was the probably the first dog that we used to the Cowboy
Right.
females. Yep.
And I would imagine that success is why you decided even more recently, and Keston and I got involved with this pup out of Trackman Seaman and Jillian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that part of the line of dogs didn't have Trackman in them. So with this past success that we had using him, and I had Seaman, that it was a pretty simple decision to breed
Right.
Jill to Trackman.
I
Yes.
got you. Okay, so when did you decide to go into the Coma dogs?
Well, going back, I had a female out of Thunder's Clyde that was a top shelf dog. Her name was Rose. And I drew Duke Prue with Nowheres one night at Beaver Falls at a qualifier. And Nowheres was a year old. And she beat me handily. And she left a lasting impression on me that I can still remember to this day, And so when Duke started to breed her, and Bone Collector was like the bombshell that come on the scene, it was a pretty easy decision to use him because I knew what she was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that and Duke was he's a high end in the world of coon hunting. He hunted with all of them, and whenever he would like chose Hub's Homer, I never hunted with him, but when somebody like that picks a dog, that he's picked him for a reason.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, actually, and then so Sue came out of Legend.
Correct. So
Eh,
anyway, yeah, that was so. I was talking to Duke somewhere at a hunt, and asking him about stud dogs and everything. And he said that Legend dog down in Missouri is a good one to breed to. He said he's big houndy rascals with good mouths and accurate tree dogs. And so, just short conversations like that, I never forget them. So we Sue, or I'm sorry, Honey was like I said, she was like 10 years old,
Right.
and Dale Montgomery was talking about just breeding her to a local dog, and I said, buddy, I said that would be fine, but at the end of the day, if it makes the best dog we ever had, you still don't have what you want in a breeding program to have people recognize what you've
And
been
long term
doing,
effects. Yeah.
right. So I said, listen, I'll just take care of it. We'll get her down to Missouri and we'll make this happen. He fought me on it, but I convinced him and we got it done. And John Brundage drove her down there, and he became friends with Chad Medlock that had Legend, and those guys were great to deal with. They bred her and bred her and bred her, which, when you're talking a female that's old like that, it's important.
Right.
And she had 4 pups, 2 females and 2 males, and they were all jackpot. And so it's a stretch, to haul a 10-year-old female to Missouri and go through all that, but you never know how good it could be unless you try.
Well, and it's kind of something we didn't. Well, we'll talk about him later. I had a thought right there, but it'll come back when we talk about another dog.
Mm-hmm.
But so of course that one turned out great. Everybody's dream of having a world champion, and of course Sue did that in 2016. And I'll be very grateful to Sue always for that, because that's how you and I became acquainted, really,
Yeah.
and me with Tom and with Rick and all that. So anyway, all right. Well, where did
Sue also, the year before that in 15, she was a reserve ACHA world champion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
too shabby. Yeah,
No, I couldn't leave that out. Adam Miller hunted her
yeah.
out at Russ Beller's there. And we had a star cast there, Final Four, and she just missed it by a little.
Mm,
But
mm.
yeah, she's a true competition dog.
Okay, well then you reached out. I don't know if I've got these in chronological order or not,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember that you reached. Well, I didn't remember when, but I hunted with Shot and learned
Mm-hmm.
that she was out of Jigs, a full throttle Jigs dog. How'd that come about?
Well, I started hearing about jigs, and I think I talked to Dustin Weed before I went up and bred to him, and he was hunting Meltdown at the time, and I talked to several guys he was originally from Louisiana, I believe, and he was down south, and a lot of the dogs out of him were from the deep south there, and there wasn't a whole lot going on up here around about him. He was in New York at Pete Olivia's place, and I made the decision I was going to use him. We had such good results with using Bone, his half brother. So Quickie and Track Girl both came in heat at the same time, and I called Pete about breeding those females, and he wasn't home at the time, but he said just come on up and get them bred. So we a buddy and I rode up to New York, and Girl was the first one that needed bred. And we just decided we'd take a little fishing trip because I wanted to breed her and then skip a day and breed her again and come home. Well, Quickie wasn't quite ready. And Pete said, well, I have nobody there that can breed the dogs or whatever. It's not going to be able to happen. So anyway, I got a hold from a friend of a friend. I got a hold of a fella in New York that lived about an hour from Pete. And I said, would you come and meet us and get this female and drive her back and forth? get her bred and all that? He said, yeah, he'd do it. So
Wow.
just,
That's
just had
great.
to, yeah. And both of those crosses were really good. Jigs is a super dog to breed to. Super. Him and Bone were instrumental, really, in the success, that we're having now. Really, really good
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, then, I don't know. Here again, I don't know if I wanted to mention several of the dogs
Now
you.
that fella's just one. Just popped into my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
Grant Tuttle. Did you ever hear Grant
I've
Tuttle?
heard that name. Yes.
Yep, yep. I never even met him. He drove to Pete's, picked the dog up, took her home, drove back and forth, just like a warrior
Wow.
for me.
Coon
Never met
hunters
him.
helping
Yep.
coon hunters, right?
Yeah, it was. Yep, yeah. It was a great.
That's
It was
awesome.
great. Okay, so
All right. So then, let's talk about you bred to Big Money. Cable
yes,
and Danner's Big Money dog.
yeah. We bred Fran. Uh, was the first dog I bred to Big Money, and we lost that whole litter.
Right.
So then we bred Baby to Little Money, and that was, that we've already talked about that. I bred then a female out of Bone and track girl called Dreamy that I had. I bred her to Big Money, and there's at least a couple of them. I know there's one. I think in Texas, a guy called me about looking for more of them that he wanted to buy. That he said he was the best thing he's ever had. So some of them I know. I wasn't able to keep any of those because whenever I lost all them out of Friend, there were guys that were waiting to get a Big Money pup, so I had to sell all those ones out of Dreamy. But I know some of them did really well.
Well, I can attest to that. And I wish I'd done that before I prepped for the show. A individual contacted me that has one of those Dreamy pups that's apparently doing outstanding and really, really high on it. So, so there, I'll get that information, give you some feedback there on your breeding program. I meant to do that. Okay, so then you took. We talked about Baby and the trip down to breed to Little Money and what that produced with Lady and Bank. Why did you? Well, I think you addressed that already. You wanted to get some more of that hunt and go, and that's why you chose Little Money, right?
Yeah. Well, Rick had hunted with him multiple times and said, he was one of the best that he had drawn, and just his heart and everything. We just decided to use him. And I'm not sure where we were on the list, but we were one of the first ones that bred to Little Money.
Right.
Just by knowing what he was personally as a coon dog.
Well, there's another good decision you made, Randy, I tell you. All right. Well, what conversation could we have about breeding dogs without talking about Mr. Coon Hunter himself, Frank Giddings up in Muskegon, Michigan? But you used, of course, and you and I really enjoyed the trip that I took with you back. I think it was in 2000. I know it was right in the height of this COVID mess.
Yes.
But we had a couple dogs up there at Frank's, and we drove up and hunted a couple nights
Yeah. Frank, they don't make very many of them like him. He's the Iron Man. He's still out there. Frank is probably 82 now.
I think so. Yeah.
He'll out hunt all of us. Yeah, he's a tough bird. When you've had way more than enough, and you say, "That's it, Frank, I'm going back," you'll hear him turn them dogs loose again back in there.
Right. We were up there. He had been hunting that cruise pup for me, and he got treed back in there, and he said, "Well, I'll just go get him." Way back in there, and he comes back. Well, he had 2 coons. I said, "Well, if you say he had to, Frank. I don't doubt that a bit." But that brings up the subject of the Max's Rock River Stylish Sun dog.
Yeah.
And you use Sun in your breeding program.
Yeah, I bred Baby and Quick Shot both to him, and Son was a good dog to breed to. We have a female out of Baby and him right now. We call Girly. That she'll eat your lunch. She's a great one. She's gonna be. You'll hear about her. She's Kyle Preston that has hunted Jill's had her up there here lately, and she'll tree you lots of coons behind you, beside you, out past you, or whatever. She's for real. And there's other ones out of Quick Shot. I don't have one of them. The female that I kept, we sold to a fella down south there. But yeah, he's Son's a good reproducer. There's one that a lot of people know about that's never been in a night hunt that is out in Otterburn, Indiana right now. That I'll tell you what, he's probably about as good as they get, I would say.
Yeah, that would be our good friend Brewster's dog.
Yeah, Bruce Jansen. He said that he would. Now, Bruce should sell any dog he ever had, as far as I know of. He told me he's never selling that dog.
Yeah, we just had Bruce on the podcast. In fact, that podcast is airing this week as we're recording this one. And
yeah,
Bruce is a great dog man, and I know he really likes that hound. Let's see, what does he call the dog?
Rip.
Okay,
Rip.
Yeah, Rip.
Yeah,
That's right.
Bruce and I have been friends for a long, long time, and Bruce will tell you just how it is, whether you want to hear it or whether you don't.
You got to respect somebody like that for sure.
Yep, that's right.
Well, then you kind of a guy that I maybe have these out of order, but I know that you got interested in the Hardeman's Jeb dog that you mentioned earlier, and also the Josie Wales dog, Mike Gilbert, and those guys. How did that all come about, and that decision and so forth?
It's funny how those paths, lead to. But anyway, I was out at a slam hunt at Russ Beller's before Walker days. Oh, it's been several years ago now. And I drew out with Steve Burkholder in Big Country and Shot Through the World. And I think it was a female out of Bushwhacker. And as it turned out, it come between, I was hunting Fran that night, and it come between me and Shot Through the World. And I made a stupid call at the end there and lost a cast for myself. But Shot Through the World was one of the better dogs I'd ever hunted with. I mean, he's for real. And I looked into what he was out of, and he was from Mike Gilbert's breeding. Well, Mike judged me at the baby stakes one time years ago. I was hunting a female called Bunny that was out of Trackman and Honey Buns.
Right.
And Mike we clicked, that night, and we were just not friends, but I knew him to be, a great fellow with it. The female, I won the baby stakes that year, and that's the mother to Let Loose Lila of Gerald Keegan's, his world champion, going back that way. But anyway, I found out that Shot Through the World come from Mike's down there. So when I looked into breeding to Shot Through the World, he was sterile. So
right.
I called Mike and I said, what from your line of dogs would you recommend breeding to? And he said, well, the Jeb dog that Tootsie has in Georgia there he's a really good reproducer. And then I have a son of him called Josie Wales here. So Mike and I were back and forth, and when I told Chris in Georgia that I was thinking about breeding to his dog, I had two females that come in heat right at the same time. They always do here. It's like a domino effect. But Shot and Fran came in heat at the same time. Chris drove that dog from Georgia to Mike Gilbert's place for me.
Wow.
So Rick and I went out there to go hunting with Mike, and I said, "Well, I don't know if, I mean, if I'm going to, I'm going to, but I said, what do you think about breeding to Josie?" Well, Josie was out of Hardman's Jeb and Doc's Little Sugar. Well, at the time, everybody knew Sugar. She was winning nonstop in PKC, and so anyway, it turns out that Josie is a line bred dog on Mike's stuff. So I really paid attention and looked at his pedigree, and so I decided to breed one to the one and one to the other, and it worked out great. We've got stuff out of both of those crosses now, and they were really good dogs to breed to, really good.
Well, there you go. That coonhounding network in play, and the old saying, not what you know is who you know, but knowing the right people. That's benefited me so much over the years in what I've tried to do in coon hunting. But okay, well, yeah, I knew that you bred to those dogs. I didn't know why, but now I do, and you're beginning to see the results already from that, and really nice looking pups too, right?
Oh, they're nice. Yep, yeah. They're really nice. There's several out of each one of those litters that are really hitting it big. They're doing really good. Some of them have titles on them already, and there's a lot more that's going to.
All right, let's talk about a dog that probably doesn't fit that tricolor blanket back red-headed mold, but pretty good dog with pretty good reputation, Hillbilly Deluxe. What was your decision on that?
Well, he's a known reproducer, and at the time, Hillbilly Deluxe, he was almost unbeatable. Jeff Stollard that dog's picture was in the Pro Hound multiple times every month, and I never got a chance to hunt with him, but my buddy Birchall Davis that owns Frogger right now was real close with that litter that Bill was out of, and he told me that those were that was a great litter of dogs, so that's all I needed to hear about that. So I was able to buy a couple breedings from Jeff, and now those pups I bred shot to Hillbilly Deluxe semen here, and they're about 8 months old, but there's some of them that are really doing well.
Well, I saw your Chrome female there when I was up, and she's a real sweetheart.
Yeah.
She kind of fell in love with Ella there, I think. Ella thought, oh, she's a beautiful dog. And I said, well, she's open spotted. She's a white dog, but she's pretty. She sure is.
She'll be fine. Good. She'll be fine. Yeah. They all sound what they sound like when they're in there.
That's right. They don't have to. All that color doesn't count then, does it?
No.
I guess I am right in my assessment of the dogs I've seen now that Hillbilly Deluxe were kind of more open. Was he himself a white dog?
Yeah, he's open spotted.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's a clover looking dog.
Yeah, right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, well, I know that you bred to the Trackman semen, and we're feeding some of that right now, and she's coming along. She's been a little slow, but she's learning day by day, and we're gonna make a coon dog out of her.
Sometimes those ones, whenever they flip their switch at 14 months old, and you put them down with the ones that have been going since 7, you all of a sudden got a better one.
Yeah, well, she hates a coon for sure, and she's forevermore a tree dog. So
yeah,
we're hopeful.
Good.
We're hopeful.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, now you bred to a dog that I just thought, man, I hadn't really paid attention. I living down here in the swamp, I don't pay attention to things as closely as I used to. You bred to a dog called Cooney Valley Pack. Why did you make that decision?
Well, he's from the Power Pack and Easy Cross, which it'll go down as probably one of the all-time greatest crosses ever made. They bred that female every time she come in, I think, to him, and they were some real good ones in there. And I know John Strickland's dog Apollo.
Yeah.
And I was kicking around using one of them, and I messaged John to see if they were breeding Apollo, and he said no. And I knew about the Cooney Valley Pack down there, and if the Burdens have a dog down there, you don't need to know much more than that. Those guys are for real coon hunters. That they're not going to hunt a dog that isn't world class on top of world class. So I did know the guy that owned Cooney Valley Pack before he got sold a time or two, and checked on him a little bit. And so I sent Fran down to breed to him, and those guys treated me like gold. But we only got 2 pups that time. And I guess about the one.
Boy, do I ever.
That's great.
That my buddy, Keston Jesse, is how we came together. And I have you to thank for that, Randy. Keston contacted me through the podcast. He'd been listening. And he said, I am looking for a well-bred Walker pup. I want a male. I'm not looking for something cheap. I'm looking for something good. And I just happened to know that you had pups at that time. And I think somehow, I don't know how that came about, but you and Keston got together. Well, as I'm prone to do, and of course my mother was still living at that time in Virginia, when I get up to that part of the world, I try to get up and hunt a night or two with you if I can. And so anyway, you and Keston agreed on a male pup out of Pack and Fran, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and so I hauled him back to Virginia, and right away, Keston would call me about every day. I got a question for you. He'd say, and he's talking about this pup. And I didn't know if this kid was really a hunter or what, I knew he was a farm kid, that his family owned dairy farms and all that, and he had a lot of hunting territory, but I didn't know. But he got that pup, and he started just every night. He'd take that pup for a walk in the woods. Just from the time he was about, I don't know what he was, 3 months maybe when I got him, something like that. Beautiful tricolor dog. I'll cut to the chase on this. This dog is 15 months old. He hunts this dog in some farming country, but it's very hilly and there's mountains. And I mean, this dog has done a phenomenal job. Well over 100 coons he's treated by himself. He's trained strictly by himself. I think he's had him with another dog a few times, but the dog is just an absolute natural. And he was telling me last night, he says, I'm going to cut him again. I hate to. But he said, I'm going to cut him again because he knew it was going to be a walk. And he's like 800 in there struck. When you walk up, there's a raccoon there. I mean, He is a phenomenal young dog. And guys have already been bugging him, some guys. He went to Autumn Oaks for the first time and met some people, and now they're trying to talk him out of his dog, but he's holding strong. So that definitely was a good cross right there. I don't know what the other one is doing, but old Clyde, he calls him. I call him Sliding Clyde, man. He can slide under him, and he's got the grease when he does. It's a fun deal to watch a young hunter like that.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best stuff.
Yeah.
Really
and
good.
I know, Randy, I'm not trying to make this a commercial for your dogs or anything. Really, it's to encourage breeders and the guys out there that have a desire to breed dogs, that it can't be done just by taking old Handy to old Reddy and getting a litter of pups and hoping. There's got to be a design. There's got to be a plan, and it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No, it doesn't happen overnight. No, the best advice I could give somebody that, I've made a lot of mistakes as far as breeding dogs, and I'm going to probably make more. But the main thing that you need to do is regardless of what you're looking for, you have to breed to a line of dogs that produce the kind of dog what you're looking for. And the paperwork and all that is nice and everything, but at the end of the day, if you're making an outcross or whatever, you need to look at what the dog is reproducing, look at what the dog was himself, look at what his parents were, the style of dogs that they were, and don't get caught up on, I like a certain dog that's in that pedigree, because that isn't going to do you one bit of good. You have to go with what the average is on that family of dogs, what they're like, and you'll be way better off for it. I got hung up initially on breeding the dogs because, I liked, they had other Lone Pine dogs in their pedigree or this or that. Don't get hung up on what you think you like. You get hung up on what style of dogs that they are, what they've reproduced, what their parents were like, and you've already cut out about 80% of the heartbreak.
Well spoken, for sure. Well, I think, unless I've missed some, we come down to another trip to Pennsylvania to pick up a puppy. And this time it's Keston and me together, and we got a Frogger pup.
Oh,
so where did that decision come from?
Well, my good buddy Eric Pyatt, he lives down by Cincinnati, Ohio. There, if he has a dog tied at his place, you better pay attention, because if it's there for more than a couple weeks, there's a reason for it. Eric is one of the winningest handlers there is out there, probably ever be. And when I hunted with him in the past with Homer, a dog out of Bone Collector, that was part of the decision about breeding to Bone Collector, because Homer was one of the best I ever seen go, and Eric had him there for years. He was for real. So knowing that he had Frogger there for a couple years or so, I haven't got to hunt with Frogger, but some of the guys here have. He's for real, and he's got good solid background behind him. And then I hadn't bred anything to him, and they got a good way of promoting him on Facebook, and then you see these young dogs on there one after another with that Frogger mouth and that, the hunt,
yeah,
and that classy tree dog and the works. I just had a feeling that he was a go-to, so we bred a couple to him, and they're little babies now, but we'll know here before too long.
Yeah,
I got a feeling they'll be great ones.
Well, this little girl we got, I don't know who it was that started that trend. I think it was some of the Ohio boys over there with the fish female.
Fred Bodenberg.
Right.
Yeah.
And with spelling the F with a PH, like phone. And of course, Frogger is spelled that way. So I've hung I don't know if it's been used before or not, because there's only so many words that start with F. But one of the best dogs I ever had down through the years, of course, she was a plot, but her name was Fancy. And she made it to the Hall of Fame. So we named this little girl Lone Pine Feeling Fancy, and with a PH. EELING and a PHANCY. So, and she's a fancy little gal, but she's really a nice puppy, and so really thankful, and thank you, Randy, for allowing us to have that pup. But well, I think, of course, we kind of skipped over, I guess, a little bit. We mentioned TrackMan and used the semen here within the last year or so to raise a litter. What, did you raise 1 or 2 litters out of TrackMan?
Of TrackMan, just
Yeah,
one
just
here
one.
as of
Yeah,
recent years. Yeah.
right, right.
Yep.
Have we missed anybody or any dog that
Oh,
was in the program?
I'm sure that we have. Yeah, it starts to blend in together. Whenever I'm trying to look forward all the time. So,
Well, what
the
are
ones
your
that you,
plans going forward, Randy? What are you thinking about when you're?
well, I have semen from a bunch of different dogs, and I'm going to definitely use jigs coming up here again, probably before too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have some bone collector semen left. So, for right now, I mean, I have plans, but we've got plans for the females to do some winning and stuff here first. But
Sure.
as of right now, the two females that we'll be using to breed here over the next couple years are Jill and Shot. Until we get some wins under our belts with these younger generation stuff
I
that's going
got you.
on right now.
I got you.
Yep, but I always got, I'm paying attention to what's going on out there. I mean, it's really important as a breeder, like that. The I was so upset whenever they were going to discontinue the pro hound, because at least when you're looking in there at like you know the the breeders that are doing
Mm-hmm.
the
The
upscale
breeder of the
work, and
year and
breeder of the year, and in the back there, the dogs of the month, the
yeah.
female, the
Mm-hmm.
male, the pups. You can see you know just a little bit about insight on what's going on out there, and
Yeah.
who's showing what. And I always pay attention to all that stuff. It's important to, if you're going to have success, you pay attention to people that have had success. So
Right.
I look at what other successful people are doing, and it's like that. If you want to be poor, you do what poor people do. If you want to be rich, you do what rich people do. That's
Yep.
all. I mean,
That's right.
it's simple. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's always good to try things on your own, and everything, but it's really important to look back and see what successful people did.
Well, I've always followed that philosophy in my life. And I told Larry Meeks that one time. I said, I've always liked or tried to associate with successful people. Not for the fact that I could name drop and say, well, I know Larry Meeks, or I know Jarvis Humphreys, or I know Randy Smith. No, but I learn. When I'm around successful people, I learn things. I learned how to be a better businessman by working for Fred Miller at
Mm-hmm.
UKC. I learned how to sell before I ever went to PKC or UKC from a guy named Chester Roberts, was originally from Tennessee. People that are good at what they do, you need to pay attention to what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Randy.
Well, I think I said the last time that that we did a podcast like this, is that in just about anything that you want to do, if you just find people that have had success doing that, and you show interest to that person, there isn't very many of them that'll turn you away.
Right.
And I got to be a big fan of Dave Ramsey back years ago. He's like a Christian money guru guy. And he said, listen, if you want to learn how to be a real estate agent, or you want to learn how to do this or that, if you just look up the most successful one in the area and say, hey, listen, I'd like to buy you lunch today. If we could just sit down and talk, there's hardly anybody that wouldn't say, let's do it.
Yeah.
You just pay attention to what success is, no matter what it is you want to do in life. If you just pay attention, and they'll tell you what to do, and they'll tell you where they made their mistakes. And most of the time, the list of the things not to do is bigger than the list of things to do. But if you just pay attention to that, you can cut so much time off of the learning curve by paying attention to people that are willing to share with you. And mostly you won't have very many people turn you away.
Well, there's certainly nothing that I can add to that, Randy. It's excellent advice. And the only one little caution I would give people out there is don't be jealous. Don't be envious of what someone else has done or their success. Learn from it, as you have said.
That is that that right there is the biggest pit and deadfall that there is in life. It doesn't matter what. Like just for instance, the other night, like I said about those boys of mine. Well, I had to go pick up Troy. He was out at a buddy of mine bear hunting, and he heard that his brother shot that big buck that he wanted. The ride home was quiet. I said, buddy, when you hit the door to that house, you got to find it in yourself to tell your brother how happy you are that he shot that buck, because it will do you no good to stew over, something that's, it's
Right.
a waste. Don't ever do that. I told him, I said, that's why people fail in life is over envious, jealousy and
Right.
being critical of people that have done something that you wanted to do. If you just can't be that way. That's a sure recipe for failure and disaster, is to be envious or jealous of somebody over something.
Randy Smith, master breeder, tree and walker coonhounds. If you don't believe me, just check the record books, Hall of Fames, World Championships, piles of money spent and won. But it's such
more spent.
such a privilege to have you on the podcast today, Randy. I think we pretty well shined this tree. We've got about an hour and 30 minutes in, and but such great advice for anybody out there that wants to be a coonhound breeder, but maybe don't know how to go about it, or at least they'll admit that they don't know. This is all great information. This is one you'll want to go back and listen to several times over.
Well, Steve, you can put my phone number with this. Anybody that would ever want to call me and I could help them in any way, I always answer the phone.
Well, we'll do that, Randy, for sure. And I know that you've helped me a lot. And as I get older, I appreciate you so much by sending me the videos, and I get to try follow along and be a part of the Lone Pine team sometimes. At least I feel that way, and so I appreciate that very, very much. And it goes without saying, you're one of my best friends, and I appreciate you, buddy. And of course, your friend Tom Strang, prayers, and I had intended to do a GoFundMe for Tom. Many of our listeners may not know that their house burned down. And Tom, of course, as you know, is in that wheelchair from a tragic accident back many years ago. One of the greatest guys you'll ever meet in the sport of coon hunting. I do communicate with him quite often, but if you'd like to, what's the status on that, Randy?
Well, they've been working on the house for over a year now. They say that they're going to be in after the first of the year, and they've really been through a nightmare, and it's like the last folks in the world you'd want to see something like that happen to.
Right.
It's really been sad, but Tom's always upbeat and saying that this better times are coming, Yeah, they've really been through a hard time here.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you listeners out there right now, you can message me on Facebook at Stephen F. Fielder. I'm on the Coon Hunting Conversations group page. I'm on the Gone to the Dogs podcast group page. You know how to get in touch with me. If you'd like to help Tom and his family going through this tough time, just get in touch with me and we'll talk about it and see how we can come together to help this fellow coon hunter. Randy, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program today and sharing your wisdom and the amazing story of the Lone Pine Tree and Walkers. And just wish you much success going forward. And unless you've got something else to add, I'll close this thing out.
Well, I just thank you for the opportunity, and it's an honor to be on here. And I just feel like it's just been my life's work, and it's nice that that there is interest in it, and I've had a lot of help, and it's been a good ride, and I just appreciate the opportunity, Steve. And if there's anything I can do for anybody out there that I can do it, I'd be glad to help.
Well, I know that's absolutely true, Randy, and I thank you for coming on. Friends, if anybody asks you here in this fall of the year, where's Steve Fielder? Where's that old worn-out coon hunter? You tell him he's up in Pennsylvania with Randy Smith, and they've gone to the dogs.
Take care, bud.